Welcome back, everyone. I hope that you had a relaxing break and that you are as excited as I am to attend our last session of the day. It is the 2021 edition of our Solar Startup Award, and actually the fourth edition of our Startup Award, which were launched some years ago with a good premiere at Intersolar. And it is absolutely superb to see how over the years this initiative has kept happening, but also welcoming always more innovative companies from the field. Albert Einstein once said, "The true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination." And one thing we can truly say about all the startups that have been selected and listed as finalists for today's Startup Award is that they do not lack intelligence nor imagination. But before I hand over to this exciting moment and to our host for the award, I would like to show you a keynote presentation from Hariram Subramanian, which is the CTO of Huawei, and who will introduce the topic of innovation, talking about 10 trends which are truly making our sector even smarter and innovative.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. Huawei is very glad to support SolarPower Europe and to present the keynote today for SolarPower Startup Awards 2021. For energy transition into renewables, solar technology is one of the main pillars. And it definitely requires quite a lot of technological developments, advances in innovation, and to find smart solutions. We want to highlight these trends today and walk you through some of the 10 key trends that we might see with the smart PV by 2025. So here we see some very key 10 trends actually converging more towards digital technologies, to grid-related topics, and also related to reliability of, let's say, the products and solutions. And so when we categorize these trends, we could look into all the topic related to digital technology. That is digitalization, AI-driven upgrades, unmanned PV plants. And when we talk about grid, it's supporting to the grid in a more proactive way to bring in grid friendliness, to bring in solar and storage, and also virtual power plants for in new markets. And one more important topic related to the reliability is safetiness in addition to power density and modularity. And last but not the least is the security and trustworthiness on, let's say, the power generating system. We will walk through a little bit more in detail on these 10 trends quickly to see what are the real patterns that we are seeing that will emerge in 2025. When we speak about digital technologies, it has a significant impact in O&M, product management, and in asset management. We expect around about 90% of the PV plants to be fully digitalized, and it's possible through connectivity technologies, and also through technologies that brings in, let's say, data analytics here from the power plant to, for a very simple, intelligent, and a very efficient monitoring purposes. When we speak about the trend 2, it actually talks about deep learning methods. We call it as the AI-driven upgrades. We are already seeing quite a lot of power plants are deploying AI-driven methods, especially for O&M, but also when we speak about topics related to grid, it's also quite very much interrelated there. What is interesting is that the AI algorithms needs quite a lot of computational power and needs to bring in technologies, let's say computational technologies, and also data crunching methods to find out some patterns that might emerge, which will help to get into, let's say, more into analytics, and also coming up with interesting, let's say, predictions and coming up with answers that will be very useful for large-scale power plants for monitoring purposes and for O&M purposes as well. So we see this as a digitalization and AI put together, and obviously this means that there is, let's say, data, and there is network with the data, and also there is management of the data for applications in the PE scenarios. The trend 3 is going to be unmanned PV plants. Here we are seeing also a combination of digital technologies and AI. But more interestingly, it also brings in inspection methods through unmanned drones, robotics, and also for already we are seeing concepts existing like cleaning robots in the power plants, but we will see these kind of trends increase quite rapidly. And we expect around 80% in 2025 that the PV plant will be unmanned, and it will all be automated and monitored in a remote way. Very important thing is the proactive support to the power grids, as we are now speaking about technologies or power plants that are grid tied and behaves like a current source, but we will also see more and more concepts related to voltage source to anchor the grid voltage through power electronic converters. And we would also see these technologies would support weak grid situations and also brings in stability in the power systems. There are various methods that are being adapted through control algorithms, and these methods would help in to bring in large scale stability, wide angle stability, and inter-region stability, and so on, which is very, very important when we speak about massive penetration of renewables into the power systems in the end. And also trend 5, when we speak about solar and storage, it's also a topic related to grid, but basically it is also bringing in new business models and services that could be provided to the electrical infrastructure and to the grid and to the end customers as well. And we see this solar and storage either technologically driven or also market driven. Various kinds of applications like in the frequency regulation market, or to provide arbitrage, peak shifting, and also for self-consumption when we speak about C&I and residential markets. And we expect it around 30% with solar and storage by 2025. And the trend is actually going in a very positive direction here with storage. One other important aspect is virtual power plants. Here we will see a lot of small distributed generations combined to act like a big force and creating large scale aggregations. Expecting around about 80% of the residential PV systems will connect to the virtual power plant network. This is also creating new business models, and is one of the most important thing when we speak about bringing in, let's say, smaller scale generating sources also into the big market of renewables in the end. Trend 7 is active safety. Here we speak about topics related to safety nets that can be provided by different technologies. One important thing is the arc fault circuit interrupters, which is becoming a must imperative requirements in C&I and residential, especially in rooftops. This requires detection and as well as shutting down when there is a potential arcs that could be detected due to various reasons in the power plant, like due to reasons like cables that are not fully connected or that could get wear away during the lifetime of the power plant and so on. So this is getting more and more important in active safetiness. From the reliability aspect and also from the semiconductor technology, we might move more into interesting trend of high power density that brings in, let's say, innovations in the packaging of semiconductors that also brings in the use of newer material science technologies when people would move away, let's say, from pure silicon to interesting technologies like silicon carbide and gallium nitride and wide band gap components there. This also brings in very interesting concepts related to thermal design and thermal efficiency and best possibilities for heat dissipation, and how these components can be integrated in the package, like passive components inside the packaging, that would also reduce parasitics and improve, let's say, performance at the power conversion level. So we will see a trend of around about 50% improved power density in the products, and we would also see this improved power density would bring in modularity. So this is an important thing on modular design, especially bringing in, let's say, hot swap possibilities, and also bringing in a concept that could be thought about like very small power electronic blocks, building blocks that interacts with each other. We could see that also in the storage technologies, or a combination with PV and storage on the hardware level, to see modularities which will bring in high amounts of availability and reliability to the power plants. And last but not the least is the most important thing on security and trustworthiness, to bring in resilience and to bring in robustness in the network, and also in the connectivity part. So we will also see, let's say, improvements in algorithms, and already quite a lot of algorithms are being established, and this will bring in high amounts of reliability, security, safety, resilience, getting more and more important, and we will also see that the industry catching up to let's say to this very important and topic related to security and trustworthiness. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope the trends were quite interesting for you. So it's very important to understand that the convergence in digital technologies with aspect related to grid safety and trustworthiness would play a very, very important role. And we are also seeing this and seeing this trend already happening from the technology level, from the product level, and also in the application level in the power plant. Thank you very much for listening today, and I wish you all a very great day.
Thank you so much, Hariram, for your presentation. I think that without a doubt, our sector is amazingly innovative. And as you could show, actually, I mean, there are so many areas we can work on. However, and unfortunately, there can only be one winner of the Solar Startup Award. So the jury that is going to take over under the leadership of our host, Michael Schmela, will have the very difficult task of choosing the company which is going to be, according to us, the more innovative. But let's not forget that this whole Startup Award, which actually is also your baby, Michael, which you started also 4 years ago, is most of all a celebration of our most innovative and forward-looking solar startups. So without further ado, it is an immense pleasure to hand over to you, Michael, our executive advisor and true solar geek. So Michael Schmela, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Aurelie, for the kind intro. Happy to be considered still a solar geek after, I don't know, 25 plus years in the sector. Okay, thanks also to Hariram for the keynote. Always good for a startup to learn from business leaders, and that's for sure what Huawei is in the solar sector, and always continuing to innovate, which I very much like, being a leader in the inverter field and now also moving into the field of storage. Very great. Okay, everyone, this is always one of my favorite sessions at our Solar Power Summit, as we as a jury have really the opportunity to learn a lot about new business ideas to accelerate our energy transition, which will be, as we heard several times during the summit, based on solar power, and we still continue to shout it out to those who still don't believe us. Anyway, while solar is now the cheapest power generation source, that's not true everywhere yet, and also not for every application. So we have quite some more way to go. If we look at the massive renewable capacities that we need to install, also when we look at the hydrogen challenge that's coming up, and we better not go but run fast. So any clever idea is very welcome. Today, as Aurélie said, we have the 4th edition of the Startup Award, and this time it's actually a bit different. We've expanded it from being a digital solar and battery storage award, what it was in the past, to any type of solar businesses. We simply want to be able to look at and present the full scale and variety of solar innovations. And that includes not only fancy digital peer-to-peer solutions, but also, and that can be really exciting as well, manufacturing solution, which is actually also very much of interest to us in Europe, as we really want to reignite our ingot to module manufacturing industry these days. And indeed, our 4 finalists that we have here have very different offerings, from design software solutions to solar production equipment and solar module technology. Let me first briefly introduce the jury before we start with the competition of the finalists. So yes, one back, please. So I'm very happy first to have with us Stefan Müller. He's co-founder and board member of Enerpark. Probably everyone knows that company. It's Germany's largest solar IPP and a developer that's active in many countries around the globe. Without Stefan, this Solar Startup Award would have not been possible, because from the beginning, we were also having some money associated or connected to that award, and that comes from Enerpark. So thanks, first of all, Stefan, to that. Then we have with us Laurent Mikolajczak. Also very good to have Laurent with us. He's also with us now for, I think, the 3rd time. And Laurent has also an important role. He's a co-founder of BeFounders, Startup Accelerator, and he's also contributing to the award. I will tell later what he does for us, or for the winner. And I'm very happy also to have this time with us, for the first time, Stephanie Bourne. She's a director renewable energy project development at DNV, which probably every one of you knows, a global independent expert in assurance and risk management, and also very, very active in the solar sector. Before we go to the competition, maybe just a few words also from Stefan, who's also instrumental for this award. Stefan.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Michael, for the introduction. Yeah, I'm also really happy to be part of this 4th session now. We just seen the nice picture where we were nearly hugged with each other in Brussels 2 years ago. This looks a bit like 10 years ago, but I'm sure all comes back. Yeah, I think for us as a jury, it was super interesting now to have also the additional, I would say, potential winners in the startup events inside, which we have not before. So I think we are moving a bit into hardcore technical things. So not anymore an app or a software system. This was for us super interesting, but also challenging. So I think Michael, you remember, and Laurent and Stephanie, when we've seen a few of these, I would say, startups who are focusing on improving the technology of modules or cells, we really have to dig a bit deeper into our brain and have to research a bit if this makes really sense or not. So, but I'm looking forward to it, to hear now also the presentations. Yeah, I have also a bit my favorite, but I think I will not address it. I don't want to convince people here who are listening to the show. But again, we are looking as Enerpark very often into young startups. I personally invested into a few of them. So I'm keen on seeing the results and also seeing the presentation.
Okay, very cool. So I think we don't have too much time, and we have a lot of interesting things to share. So in the next 50 minutes, we have the 4 finalists who will be able to present their business each in 5 minutes. Each of the presentations will be followed by a 5-man Q&A. And this will be really high-speed Q&A. So the idea is actually that each of the jury members asks the question, and basically you as the finalists have then 1 minute to answer each of these questions, so that we really stay within the Q&A for within 10 minutes, basically regarding questions and answers, and really do it as a high-speed event. So what we will do then afterwards, we do it like we've done that in the past year and also yesterday with the Gender Award, that it's us as the jury providing to give you some guidance, and we will also vote, obviously, but in the end, it's you, the audience, that will be finally selecting the winner of the Solar Startup Award 2021. So let's start with the presentations. Maybe 2 FYIs. First, the presentation order is random and was decided on by our events team. So nothing to do with the quality of the presentations. And second, we're very happy to have all startups being represented by their CEOs. It's the first time in the past when we organized the event physically that did not happen. So somewhat, as we all have experienced in the last few months, that this digital meetings can be pretty efficient and enable also interaction with very high level people. So then the efficiency of this online meeting, let's continue and let's start. First presentation will be given by Govinda Upadhyay. He's the CEO of Smart Helio, and what they do and what's behind that, he will share with us on his own. The floor is yours, Govinda, please.
Thank you, Michael. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone around the globe. I'm Govinda, CEO, founder of Smart Helio. We are the doctor of solar plants. So we make solar panels greener using our IoT and intelligent software. Next. Next. Sorry, previous. So if you see a life of solar plant globally, so you start from the left, it's a coal plant which emits around 300 grams of CO2 per unit of energy generated. A truly solar plant will generate 6 times less CO2, considering all the life cycle analysis, so which is good for the environment. But as the solar prices have gone down, the solar developers prefer to replace a panel now with very little bit of performance gone down. What we are seeing that now solar panels could be just 2 or 3 times better, which is not good. At the end, we can have a lot of waste of solar panels. According to PV magazine, 10% of global e-waste will be solar panels, and that's really a lot by 2050. So that's a massive problem. Next. We start from the left. If you have any solar panels going bad, it's very hard to identify their disease, and it's a very cost-intensive process. As a result, right now, only 5% of the solar panels are getting recycled and 95% are thrown away. That's where our technology comes. We have built a cost-effective, easy to plug in to identify faults in solar panels and prescribe steps to increase the life of the solar panels. Next. Now here we go a little technical, so we need more attention. Again, from the left-hand side, this is a schematic of a solar plant. We put our sensors, few of the sensors in the few of the panels in the plant. They use a mesh network. Then we collect data from the SCADA system or whatever data developer is using, and then we start giving the steps to improve it. Now, 2 main factors are important here. Again, on the left-hand side down, the sensor technology. Our sensor is an edge computing. It has a little brain which processes some data. It's like a Fitbit for solar, just computing and giving systems. One thing is important here is downsizing of the data. If we start collecting a lot of data from the power plant, my cloud computation will increase a lot. So that's where with our algorithms, we are able to downsize 80% of the data. Again, on the right-hand side, on the algorithm parts, a lot of software technology will come and they say AI and ML based. We are physics based. It means what? That once you plug it our algorithms, it will start emitting all the results what you want, whether in soiling, full shading, partial shading, connector failure, etc., everything. So we are much better than existing technologies. No long-term data is required. Next. So ours is very plug and play to existing infrastructure. The top line is the existing infrastructure. What we do is we just provide our software on the top of the monitorings using our APIs, and that's where you start getting results. Next. Our business model is also simple. Overall, our clients are like IPPs. These are the solar producer who produce energy, like BKW, SIG. What we give them is our technology, and with that help, they can increase their revenue because they increase the performance. And that's what we demonstrate them, and that's why this is called self-paying solution at the end. I would like to quote two from our customer. The analysis of Smart Helio can provide insights into a solar plant previously not available at all, or with only on-site inspection. Smart Helio detected faults in few days, which took us months to identify. It feels like magic. And I think these are the comments which we live for, and that's what we want to push our technology. Next. We have a highly diversified and impactful team from India, from Europe, and from US. I'm very proud to say that we have 50% female in our team, so we really believe in diversity. We are a highly young team with an average age of 32, and we have quite a good wise men and women coming as an advisor from Credit Suisse to Meyer Burger, etc. Next. Our main aim is to become brain of the clean energy. We started with solar, that's the DNA we come from, but we believe that we can create this seamless technology where you can plug in wind, EV, and hydro, and you can start getting all these insights which was not available, a complete brain, as if it is as if a Smart Helio inside in your system. Next. So thank you. Let's make solar panel greener and healthier. And I will request that everyone should wear a mask and get vaccination because Corona is still here. And I'm coming from India, and it's really tough time going on. So thank you. I'm ready for question and answer.
Thanks, Govinda. Very nice presentation. So let's start with the questions. Stefan, I think big power plants, that's also your domain. Maybe you want to start first.
Yeah, for us, it's also interesting to know how you, I would say, try not to overstress our operators with information. I think there are a lot of tools at the moment in the market, and we speak a lot about big data and so on. But at the moment, I feel there is a gap between the person who provides the data and the operational guys in our team who have to make a decision. So what is your view on this? How you can ensure that the operator gets only the right information and not too much?
Right, Stefan, thank you for the question. We do two things. One is that we don't do big data. As I said, we do minimize the data using our mesh network. So already you get relevant data. That's first step. And second, every data comes with a euro sign. So now you know which data to consider and which not to consider. So everything is clubbed with money. So it's very simple for the operator.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Laurent, maybe you?
Yes, hi, Govinda. Thank you for the presentation.
Hi, Laurent.
Apparently, your solution seems a no-brainer, and Stefan is apparently satisfied with the data that is not overwhelming. What is your main challenge to reign on the market now?
I think it's the distribution. So right now our sales cycle is around 1 year. When we want to target like company like Enopark, which I haven't done it, we will do it, Stefan, I'll send you a mail. We have big clients right now, and it takes 1 year of sales cycle for me because I have to demonstrate the performance, and it's a science-based evidence, right? So that's the long cycle. And right now the only challenge is how I can reduce the sales cycle, that we become like obvious for the power plant owners. So that's where I think the biggest fight. I think the main challenge will be the marketing and education for the customer, saying that we are not just another person coming with something. We are the person, and that's where I feel that we need good marketing. That's it. Technology is supreme. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laurent.
Okay, Stephanie?
Yep, thanks for the presentation, Govinda.
Thank you, Stephanie.
My question is, what differentiates you from other digital diagnostic tools that are in the market right now?
Exactly. There are two things I also said in the presentation. One is that we are not AI ML based. It's a pure physics based algorithm. So you plug it and your system will start working. All the existing competitors, so-called competitor, they will say that we are AI ML based. So they take a lot of data and all the stuff. So that's one differentiation. Second is that we have our own edge computing based sensors. So it means that we are not just SAS based. We do provide few of the hardware which can go to the panels and start giving you insights which were only available because of two things: drones or manual inspection, and both are very expensive and time consuming. So these are the differentiation we have. Thank you, Stefan. I hope I was able to answer.
Okay, and when we asked you basically during the application what you also considered as a main challenge, you also you said actually that the scalable cloud architecture and to process this millions of data sets across many territories is an issue. How you want to master this, and because you really want to go worldwide and
right. So actually, maybe the wording didn't come out well because we couldn't write a lot. The challenge was that if I imagine I start working with XYZ company in France, my cloud will start getting intelligent. Can that XYZ company allow me to use that data to train the cloud so that, again, that cloud can be used in India or Latin America? This is the big challenge I have, to convince the developer that it's okay. My cloud is getting trained, but everyone is getting benefited in solar industry. And I think that conservativeness is still there. And I think that's where we are working hard with people, that it's okay to get my cloud stronger and stronger so that you also get benefited. Michael, did I answer this question?
Yeah, you did. So
this was the inheritance question. Yeah.
Okay. We have, maybe if anyone has one more question, we could do that. Otherwise, we continue. Yes. Yeah, all fine. Okay, then thanks, Govinda.
Thank you.
And then we continue with the next speaker. And the next speaker is Marian Breitenbücher, Managing Director of Highline Technology. Marian, the floor is yours.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Michael, and thank you very much to the organizers and the audience for giving us the opportunity to present our technology here. Yeah, Marian, one of the co-founders of the Highline Technology, and we are developing production or next level production technology for the PV industry. Next, please. But before I start with our technology, I think it's important to understand the challenge that we are tackling with our technology. So I don't know if everyone is aware that silver actually is a quite critical resource for the PV industry, especially at the moment with the rising prices. And next, please. The reason for that is that every solar cell requires a grid on top of it that enables us to extract the electric current that is produced within the cell, collect it and make it usable. And the big challenge here is, of course, that the surface of a solar cell should be free in order for the solar radiation to enter the solar cell. Therefore, we need a resource that enables us to put very, very fine contacting grid on the surface, which at the same time can transport a lot of electricity. And therefore, we in the solar industry, we mostly apply silver. The problem is, especially now with the rising prices, that silver already is the second highest material cost of a solar cell. Apart from that, already 10% of the global silver demand comes from the PV industry. And if we plan to scale up the PV industry, that will definitely be a big issue and already is a big issue. And the current production step to apply the silver grid represents a bottleneck in the production line. So it's the slowest production step. And apart from that, if you don't apply this grid very efficiently with an optimized form, you cause undesired shading of the cell, which decreases the efficiency of the cell. So next, please. So here it's a little bit technical now, but here you see the current process, very simple explained. So on the left you see the surface of a solar cell. On top of that you see a screen where in the current process we push the plate through the screen on top of the solar cell. And in the middle, what you see there is a microscopic image of such a conducting path derived from a screen printer. So you see all these inhomogeneities and extensions. And that's all undesired shading or inefficient application of silver onto the solar cell. And on the right, you see a conducting path that would be desired. It's an ideal, you have very little shadowing and you have a lot of capacity for transport of electricity. That was achieved with the dispensing technology that we are developing. Next, please. Maybe very briefly to our background. So our team and all of the founders and many of our team have the background in at the Fraunhofer ISE, which is one of the biggest research institutes in Europe for solar energy systems. We were thinking about how to overcome this obstacle with the current production process, and came to the dispensing technology and decided, okay, we want to scale this technology up and bring it to the market. And when we saw the big potential to do that, we founded our company, licensed the technology, and now we want to bring it into the market. Next, please. So what our technology basically is about, it's a printhead that instead of pushing the silver paste through a mesh onto the solar cell, we push it through very tiny nozzles. You can compare it to when you're in the morning, when you're brushing your teeth, you take the toothpaste and you push it out of the toothpaste onto the brush. And that's actually what we are doing with high pressure and very high accuracy, because we have to say maybe that the width of such a line is half the diameter of a human hair. So it's very fine context that we have to print here. And so we developed a printhead that enables us to print 100 to 200 of these conducting paths within one crossing of the solar cell. So one cell has to be manufactured within 1 second, or this production step. So very high speed that we have to make sure here. And we also wanted to make sure that the technology has a high compatibility with the current production processes. And so the main benefits for the cell manufacturers who will use our technology is, as you see on the bottom, that we print very homogeneous lines. So for the same connectivity, we can save up to 25% of the silver. Due to the smaller width of the conducting path, we can even increase the efficiency of a solar cell due to less shadowing, which then means that for every printhead in a production line that gets installed, we can save up to 400,000 euros annually. Next, please. So, and in order to bring the technology into the market and not to force the cell manufacturer to change the whole architecture of production lines, we thought about how can we bring it into the market very easily. And so we developed the Cuckoo. And what we're doing is there's our Nest, which is the screen printer. There are plenty of screen printers in the market. So we developed an access system that can be integrated into the screen printer, make use of the whole production line that's already there, and integrate our dispensing process into the line. Next, please. And then very briefly, maybe the business model. So we are directly cooperating with the existing equipment manufacturers that are already in market and providing the production lines to the cell manufacturers. And the cell manufacturer in the end is the user of our technology, and where we want to save the silver and get solar another important step forward. And globally, we see an annual saving potential of more than 500 million euros in the form of silver and increased efficiency of the solar cells. So that was a brief overview of our technology. Thank you very much for the attention, and looking forward to the questions.
Very nice, Marian. Any who wants to start first?
Yeah, I can start first. Probably, I think it is for me an interesting, as we mentioned, an interesting new startup, no, which is a bit hardcore technical. I still remember 15, 20 years ago when we had the laser grooved Bury grid Saturn cells of BP Solar, but which has a direct impact into the cell. And I think this was a bit the drawback probably. So my technical question is, we have different cells, we have different manufacturers, we have different thicknesses, we have polymono and a few other ones. What is the impact on this new technology? Is it general? Can you use it for everything, or is it do you have to adjust it always?
So at the moment, we're focusing mainly on one solar cell, which is the solar cell concept that is coming big in Europe, which is a heterojunction solar cell. There's a very specific paste, silver paste, that is applied here, which we are focusing on at the moment. But also in the past, we already printed PERC solar cells, which is the current mass market. So we are focusing on the mass market, and at the moment mainly in Europe, because that's where we want to enter into the market. But we are benefiting a lot from also the development in the screen printing process, because the pace have been improved and improved steadily to enable fine line screen printing, which is something that we benefit from as well.
Okay, thanks.
Welcome.
Well, Stephanie?
Yes, Marian, maybe how much of these new heads have you already installed? And so what is the rhythm of installation or selling of the heads right now?
So we are in the phase where we bring this technology, we make the step from the laboratory into the industry. So for this year, the plan is to have the industrial field test. That's always, of course, the important step to show that you can produce also in industrial environment. And that's what we are currently working on, to scale up the experiments that we're having, and then within this year bring it into a production facility of the industry.
Excellent. Thank you, and good luck with that.
Thank you very much.
Stephanie?
Yeah, thanks, Marian. Listening to your presentation, it seems like a bit of a no-brainer. Like, why aren't we doing this now? And what do you consider to be kind of like the main inhibitor to your success?
I mean, screen printing is the dominant process with 99.9% in the market since more than 30 years. Many people tried to overcome screen printing or establish alternative processes, but also screen printing steadily improved, which is good. But now I think screen printing reached a point where they are struggling really hard to get it's like the screen printing process in the solar market is one of the best screen printing processes that we have. So it's really optimized, and we can take this step that was reached, especially when it comes to the paste, and go another one and go the next step. And that's also why we want to make use of the infrastructure that's already there, and don't overgrow the whole systems that are already out there. Yeah, so far.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. From my side, I've been following screen printing actually quite closely for many years, and so I think this nozzle technology was also once tried by an Israeli startup actually a long time ago, but that was probably too early at that time. So what I like actually is also that you come up with an idea so that you can upgrade actually existing technology. So as we've seen, especially in solar cell production, when you go to a next generation, it always takes longer than expected. So I think the reason why we went from BSF cells to PERC cells was because it was simply so easy. You needed just another laser and another tool actually to do that, and that's why HJT is still not there where it could be, despite its advantages. But what I see is actually, I think as you've shown, I think your technology is really interesting. You have an interesting business model, you have an interesting idea, you have savings. What I'm worrying about is, how do you want to protect your IP? Because as we've seen is that in the past, actually, screen printing, which was a domain from the German equipment manufacturing industry for many years, is now pretty much dominated by China. We've seen a lot of reverse engineering that's taking place there. That should be at some point, especially if you want to get really big, also your clients, because simply that's where most of the manufacturing is. That's where the big screen printer manufacturers are. So how can you make sure actually that your solution stays your solution?
Very good question. We've heard it often, especially in the PV market. That's a critical thing. First step is we will, until the technology really is mature and we want to take the step, we will stay in Europe. That's a first measure that we're taking. And we want to make sure that the technology, as soon as it's mature, we will have the partner on the equipment manufacturer side to go into the market very fast. So that's actually the first time, and that's always with a new technology, especially in PV, you only have a short amount of time to make the big business. And then afterwards, we do not only sell the printed, but at the current market, you have the consumable in the form of the screens, which is actually a real big market. And in order to guarantee a high uptime with our process, we also have a nozzle kit, which is exchangeable within the process. So sometimes you just need to exchange it, and that will be a consumable which for us shall ensure recurring income as well for the technology that we already brought into the market.
Okay, thanks a lot, Marian. Then, if there's any other questions, otherwise let's continue. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Marian.
Thank you very much.
Then let's come to Urban Symphony. So I think just for everyone to the audience, we're pretty much Swiss dominated. First startup was Switzerland, then we had Freiburg, which is also not so far away, and now we're back to Switzerland, and we have now Andrew Bollinger, the CEO of Urban Symphony, telling us what he has on offer. Andrew, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Michael. To be clear, I'm working in Switzerland. I'm from the US and did my studies in the Netherlands, so it's not all Swiss team. But thanks. My name is Andrew Bollinger. I'm CEO and co-founder of Symphony. Next, please. And I would like to start off with a question that is, I think, really central to a lot of the things that are being discussed today, which is how can we get the most out of solar? Is it the materials? Oh, go back, please. Now you gave away the answer. That's okay. Is it the materials? Is it the manufacturing processes? Is it the installation and operation and maintenance which need to be optimized? Of course, it's all of these things. Now you can go to the next one. But one thing that is often forgotten is the systems into which solar technologies are integrated, and that these need to be really optimized if we are going to get the most out of solar. Next, please. This starts with the energy planner, at least when we're talking about urban areas. And the job of the energy planner is to look at a site like you see here, which can be a single building, can be a neighborhood, can even be a city, and to answer the question, what is the best energy supply system for this site? Which supply technologies should be used? How big should these be? Where should they be located? Does it make sense to use gas boilers? Does it make sense to use electrolyzers and fuel cells? Does it make sense to use CHP plants? And when it comes to solar, does it make sense to use PV on the roof or the facades, or PVT or solar thermal? And how big should these installations be? Where should they be located within this urban area? And then it comes to questions like batteries and seasonal storages, seasonal thermal storages, and even hydrogen storage, and also thermal networks. So the energy planners, they're these days quite good at answering these sorts of questions. But increasingly, their customers are coming to them with a new question, which, next please, which is not only do they want them to identify the best energy supply solution for a site, they want them to identify a solution which achieves net zero CO2 emissions, which essentially produces no net CO2 over its lifetime. And this is something that energy planners are really struggling with because it's a very ambitious goal and one which requires a really systemically optimized solution. Next, please. And this is something that energy planners are struggling with across their entire project portfolios, from buildings all the way up to cities. Next. So what Symphony offers to energy planners is a software tool in the form of a web app, which enables energy planners for any site to navigate an optimal path to net zero CO2 emissions. Next, please. Under the hood here are a couple really powerful technologies. First and foremost, digital twins, which enable us to synthesize various data sources associated with a given site into a rich multi-dimensional representation of the site, which we can provide to the energy planner. And optimization algorithms, which use this data to sift through the full range of energy supply solutions for a site, including solar technologies, different solar technologies, but also coupled with other types of technologies to identify a set of truly optimal solutions, which minimizes life cycle costs, minimizes CO2 emissions, and optimizes with respect to other criteria. Next, please. What the Energy Planner gets from us is a web-based application with intuitive browser-based interfaces, comprehensive, interactive, really attractive dashboards, and next, please. Most importantly, and for the first time for energy planners, the ability to identify for any site an optimized strategy to achieve net zero CO2 emissions at minimal cost. Next, please. Symphony entered the market in November of last year with our software. We currently have about 40 users, mostly located in the Swiss market, and our software is being used in major planning projects. We're starting now to, now that we are starting to solidify our standing in the Swiss market, to orient ourselves internationally, starting with Germany. So we'd really appreciate your vote to give us a boost as we enter the German and other European markets. And next, please. So the answer, how can we get the most out of solar? One very important part of that answer is Symphony. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Andrew. Questions? Who wants to start?
Yeah, I think I start again. So we always probably make a bit around. I mean, for us, it was interesting, and this is the reason why I also somehow try to push you a bit in this last round here, because we are building our own office right now, and this is really a challenge, to be honest, because we have facade elements, we have integrated BIPV in the roof and an atrium, and we have the systems on the roof itself. And we would like to add a storage system in our building, and we have also, in addition to this, wall boxes for all the EVs in our office. And there are no tools. Let's be clear. That's the reason why I'm very interested to see what is the result of it. But nevertheless, my direct question to you is, I mean, you just started in Switzerland, and I think the move into other countries is probably also a cultural topic, no? Because I mean, engineers are, even if we are all thinking the same, but you have, I would say, a different need in Kenya than in South Africa, than even in Germany or US. So what is your view on this? How you want to, I would say, internationalize your software?
Yeah, thanks. It's a great question, and one that we're just starting to answer now. I mean, the core thing is, so our algorithms have been developed to be scalable internationally. There's some additional aspects that maybe need to be accounted for in different markets, but the other main important part is the data, and the data relates to the technologies, the costs associated with those technologies, but also policy and as you said, cultural aspects. And that's why right now we're putting a lot of emphasis on this digital twin dimension, and that will be, I think, as we expand internationally, we plan to do so gradually, so enter market by market and solidify different data resources into our digital twin infrastructure that allow us to adapt our system to different international markets. We have done, so this is I didn't mention it, but this is a startup that grew out of a research institute, and at the research institute we have been applying these algorithms also in international contexts in China, in Latin America, etc. So we do have some experience applying them in other contexts as well already.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for the presentation. Maybe a naive question, but I guess many of your clients would ask this. Could you tell me in few words, how do you create these digital twins without weeks or months of work, taking 3D plans or data or whatever, crawling? My assumption is that it is a very complex job. So how do you make sure? Because I guess your job is to make nice algorithm to get what you just said, which is something great to get, okay? But the building of these twins, how do you get there?
Yeah, so I mean, you're touching on an early realization that we had. Actually, the energy planners, when we started off, the energy planners were really enthusiastic about our algorithms, but then they use our algorithms and they spend a whole lot of time collecting data to run these algorithms effectively. So then the step for us is, what data can we provide them to start off so they can get results quickly? Maybe not. So I mean, you know, there's all sorts of data out there regarding urban areas nowadays from different sources. And our starting point for the digital twins is to integrate these different data resources into a platform that gives the energy planner a starting point for doing their analyses. We're never going to get away from the energy planner augmenting that base data set with their own data, because they will have much more rich data for site, also real-time data about building energy consumption that they will want to add. So on one hand, it's about giving this base of data to the energy planner. On the other hand, it's making it easier for them to add their own data to augment this base of data so that they can do those analyses more quickly than they could before, and make use of, I mean, nowadays, you have this high resolution data sets from sensors of existing sites coming online. And the energy planners right now, they have no way to use these data sets in the planning process. So we give them also an avenue to use the data that they have in a better way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. This is really interesting. I guess my question is around infrastructure. So like, your software is kind of coming up with a solution for planners as to kind of like, this is what it could look like. You know, this is how you can optimize the system to get the most out of renewable energy, particularly solar. But, you know, what sort of infrastructure adaptations do you think would be needed? And do you anticipate that, you know, in some markets that they might not have the required input for you to get the most out of the software?
So when you, I'm sorry, when you say infrastructure, you're talking about the actual energy infrastructure on the sites.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's a really great question and a good point. So, I mean, that's actually one of the things that the constraints of the existing infrastructure on a site is one of the things that we can account for in our optimization. So, just to give you an example, early on in our development, we did a project with a small utility here in Switzerland, and they were interested in optimizing a system for a site that included PV, but at the same time they were installing new transformers for the site, and they had an existing transformer that they might need to adapt or not. And they wanted to account for the costs of that transformer in the optimization, so of upgrades to increase the capacity of the transformer. And it's those things. So in that case, we were able to optimize the design of the energy system for the site, considering also the necessary costs to increase the size of the transformer if that was necessary. And in that case, and in a lot of cases, then you won't maximize the PV that you install, but you'll get a good balance, in that case, for instance, between facade PV and rooftop PV, so that you don't have these giant peaks feeding in or being withdrawn from the grid. That's one example, but there's other examples like that.
Cool. Do you think that, you know, it seems like Urban Symphony, it's obviously like quite useful in Europe and more mature markets, and actually I think one of the best applications for it could be in emerging markets and new and up and coming markets. Do you think that you know, older systems that maybe aren't as high tech as the systems in Switzerland and in Germany, do you think that would kind of like inhibit the success of Urban Symphony and its ability to kind of like, yeah, do its job?
No, I mean, it can, the whole idea is that it can be adapted to local conditions. So if you have a different set of technologies that are realistic or have different costs of installation, for instance, in different areas of the world, that those aspects can be accounted for in the optimization. And I mean, for instance, you know, in Japan, I know fuel cells are commonly used for heating. It's not something that you see in Europe, but because of the scale of that in Japan, the cost of fuel cells is much lower. So those aspects can be taken into account. And indeed, as you say, in those countries in the world where you have huge growth in the real estate sector, that's where a lot of decisions have to be made about energy systems to be installed, and we can enable them to do that in an optimal way. So I think that is indeed exactly where the biggest potential is, and I think we have the right capabilities to be able to address that. Although, you know, stepwise, we'll get there eventually, but we need to establish ourselves a bit first.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, yeah, just Andrew, when I looked at the last slide, you simply showed you came into the market actually only in November, and I think half a year ago you have already over 40 paying customers. Are they paying the full price that that you want to charge? Because I think that's quite impressive. If you kind of even only linearly would scale that up, your number of customers would increase dramatically and very rapidly. I try to understand actually how if your current offering is actually, or is it just intro prices you are doing, or is it basically already fully commercial and that's what you do? And then I would be also interested, what was the feedback from these customers? And I think where are the biggest challenges they saw and that you have to still accomplish and manage from their view, if you could share that.
Okay, I mean, to address your first question, I could say I wish we had 40 plus paying customers. We have different plans. We have free plans, trial plans, and different levels of paid plans. So not all of those 40 customers are on paid plans yet, but that's of course our goal. Our objective is to reach 100 paid customers by the end of this year, and I think that's well within our reach. Now, in terms of the feedback of the customers so far and of the prospective customers, I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges for us is we've done a lot of work to integrate our workflow with the existing workflows of energy planners, so they don't have to, I mean, just as was talked about with this manufacturing technology that we want to plug into existing processes. But it still requires a bit of a mindset change on the part of the energy planners, because energy planners are used to they come up with a design variant and then they test it, and they come up with a given site with 5 or 6 variants, and then they test them and they choose the best ones of those. Whereas what we're saying is put in all the possible technologies in a big bin, and then find out the best combination of all these technologies. And we're asking them to consider technologies that maybe they haven't thought of before, or technology combinations that may be new to them. That's of course a big opportunity for them, but it challenges the way that they have worked up till now. So it's our customers that we have started to see real value in this ability, but it takes a little time before they get used to working in that way.
Okay, yeah, very interesting. Thanks. Okay, I think we have to speed up a little bit. Coming to the final presentation from Laurent Coulot, who is the CEO and co-founder of Insolite. Laurent, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to speak for the Startup Awards. Looking forward, so we can go next slide, please. We'll show you today how Insolite can combine food and energy production without trade-offs. That's our goal. Next slides. So as you may know, some crops are needing some protection from excess of sunlight, typically berries, such as raspberries. And this creates plastic seas to protect them, such as here in Almeria in Spain. Just to give you an idea, this represents 220,000 hectares in Europe, accounting for almost a 300 gigawatt peak capacity. So this is not negligible. And of course, next slide, please. This is the opportunity of agrivoltaics, is to combine the protection of the crops with PV production and use the PV module as a shading device. It has different advantages. The first one, it enables utility scale deployments without degrading the landscape or the land use. And it also enables to get to multi-channel revenues, as at the same time the PV installation is an agronomic tool, and you can have multiple revenues for that. Next slide, please. Of course, the main challenge is that the silicon modules are typically opaque, and they are shading crops in excess. You see here an installation from Biowa at Grönlöven, and therefore you are degrading the agricultural yield if you shade too much. And if you space out the wafers or the modules, you are degrading the electrical yield. So there is kind of a not good solution with standard modules. Next slide, please. Here comes Insolite solution. So we are developing a translucent solar module where you can adjust the translucency of the module and then choose between energy harvesting and light transmission. So on one side, you have typical advantage for PV developers, such as higher electricity generation and no land take, enabling utility scale deployment. And on the other side, on the agronomic side, you are bringing this dynamic light adjustment that you typically have in precision farming or in greenhouses. And you are also covering the cultures and bringing the needed protection. And those key benefits combine to give an extra added value to the PV installation. Next slide. And this is the key feature of our modules. So you can basically, it's an optical system where you can choose whether the light is sent on the solar cells, it's focused on the solar cells, or you can send next to it and let it leak through the module. And you see the effect here going from a 15% translucency to 80% translucency in a few seconds. And of course, this adjustment can be done over seasons, also over climatic conditions. An important thing is that this technology is a module technology, so it's compatible with any kind of solar cells, including like monoPERC or AJT, or maybe one day perovskites. Next, please. So this is the business model, and this is also quite innovative. So the goal in agrivoltaics is to monetize multiple things. So the solar developer on one side provide electricity to the grids, I would say business as usual. But on the other side, the goal here is to rent this agronomic tool to the farmers and replace the plastic tunnels or the shading systems that they have in greenhouses. And this enables an extra revenue or an extra net margin for the developer, which is the key features that we can bring to them. Next. So doing a hardware startup is like climbing the Eiger. It's a long way to go to the top. And here is a bit our history. We are currently 15 FTEs, mostly on the technical side. And one of the key things that we don't want to become a manufacturing company, we want to team up with established manufacturing companies. There are enough good manufacturers, whether on the PV side or on the optical side in Europe or abroad, to build our modules, and we want to focus on the use case and bringing deployments. And to that end, we raised last year a Series A investment of 4.7 million euros to launch the pre-series production. So we are building now this year the first 1,000 modules that we are selling to key customers for pilots. So we have sold so far 400 modules on 11 pilots. And this is a key phase where on one side, we want to test the modules with the customers and of course, prepare a megawatt size order book for the future. Next, please. And this is one of the key upcoming projects that we have in the pipeline with a Swiss utility, Romande Energie, where we'll do a 200-meter square agrivoltaic demonstration in Switzerland on top of raspberries and strawberries, and also with an agronomic center to do 4 years agronomic studies. So maybe next slides. This is it. I really hope that was helpful, and that you will join us to feed the citizens, but also feeding the grid. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thanks, Laurent.
Yeah, I can ask probably again with the first question. So thanks a lot. I think for us it is super interesting to see also something new, especially in the application area. I think we have to think completely out of the box, and I think it's a great idea. On the other hand, I think you face probably the discussion with the manufacturers because they hate changes. In generally, they're everything. They don't want to have people inside their value chain, inside their manufacturing value chain. With whom you are talking right now, is it allowed that you can tell us? And what is the first reaction of the manufacturer to integrate you into their value chain?
Thanks for the question. It was a big learning to go to the manufacturing companies and show them our design, and this has brought quite a lot of optimization. One of them being that we got compatible with standard monoPERC stripes. And we're benefiting here from the shingles development, where we can use the same process to build our PV backplane. And that's the key thing, is that we can source now PV backplanes from standard PV manufacturers. We have one source in Europe, one source in Asia. And then we can bring the optical element for the final assembly at the contract manufacturing. So that was a key inflection point, was to be able to fit the design in their existing stringing and interconnection processes.
Good. And another short question. I mean, even if we say we are very dynamic in the market and super speedy in development, But there's another part, and these are the banks, and the banks also, they hate changes. And everyone is using the word bankability, and even if there are new technology coming up, then the bank says, oh, let us take the poly or the bono perk, but please not more. So what is the reaction there?
No, absolutely. So we need to build credibility. It will take time, or it's taking time. One thing that may help is that we are not manufacturer ourselves, and this is also part of the strategy of being kind of fabless, is to team up with companies that are bankable for building the PV backplanes, as well as companies that are bankable for building the final assembly and the flash test at the end. So the goal is to rely on existing supply chain, eventually also brand the modules, co-branding, to make sure that we're eligible for the banks. That's the way we think we can speed up this process.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Laurent. I'm interested in how the farmers are receiving your proposition to it's solar as a service, I guess, a bit. They renting the panels and getting the service, the intelligence and the productivity. My guess is that you have to educate them or struggle maybe a bit to enter in the farms.
Yeah, another very good question. So it's very interesting. So we decided to go talking to farmers early on in the process to make sure that what we were designing was right for them. And the reaction was, to our surprise, extremely positive. The reason is that first, we can really do this precision adjustment of light, exactly like they do in greenhouses. You know, they have shading systems in greenhouses. So you can bring that element to plastic tunnels or replace the ones of greenhouses. And they see that as a very, very nice agronomic tool to improve the agricultural yield. Just to give you an idea, on raspberries, the fact of controlling light could bring up to 10% of yield improvement on the size of the fruit. So it's quite interesting for them, and they're really eager to test. And of course, we have to make sure that the control algorithms bring good results. So that's the reason why we need also the pilots.
Good, thank you, Laurent.
Yeah, thanks, Laurent. My question is, what is your target market, and have you all looked into, in the places where this technology would get deployed, if the modules are creating more power than the farm needs, like, have you done any kind of studies into, like, can the power be put onto the grid? Is there a grid there? Is it a microgrid? Just kind of curious, like, if you've looked at the market at all.
Yeah, it's a work in progress, and in the sense that we are dependent on the crop type as well, on the climate conditions, and in fact, as you're right, the electricity feed-in conditions. The ideal use case is to go where you have self-consumption. There are some cases in greenhouses where you have a very high self-consumption, also for fridges for the fruits. So that's typically a good use case. And then in some countries like France, you have agrivoltaic tenders in place where they compensate higher any agrivoltaic current in the tenders. So that's typically the kind of place that we can imagine being early adopters. Another place where we saw strong traction was the Middle East. There, the use case of the module is slightly different. You really use them also to regulate the temperature of the greenhouse to make sure that it doesn't get too warm, and this can reduce the OPEX that they need to cool it off. They usually use AC to cool down the greenhouses, so it's terrible in terms of energy consumption. So very location dependent, I would say.
Interesting, thanks.
Well, a quick question from me. So I like it. So I think that's also what we need in Europe. I think we probably, it's hard to compete on conventional modules. So if we want to get back into manufacturing, we need new solutions and innovative solution. I think that's what you have. I still wonder, actually, because it is quite more expensive. I think agri PV itself is already expensive, and then comes your module. Okay, it promises higher yields, another revenue stream. Nevertheless, it is even more expensive. I think when you talk about costs, how how was the reaction from the developers you've been talking to? Because I think that's also one of your target group, and Stefan probably could also say something on that. But usually these guys, especially if they participate in tenders, it's about the fraction of the cent that counts. And so, how's the feedback there?
It's very interesting. So the first thing, yes, they know how to count for sure. They count every pennies. And it's quite interesting also in terms of feedback they're bringing. This is why we have worked on this stringed PERC version that is compatible with the existing technologies that are used today, because you can already get a backplane that is in the same range as a PV backplane, so $0.2, $0.3 per watt. And as when you say that it's going to be more expensive, yes, we expect an add-on cost at a 20 megawatt peak production of about $0.15 per watt peak. But then the installation is static. Huh? It's not something that needs to move. So we can use standard kind of Venlo type mounting systems, and you can reach an installation cost that is in the $1 per watt region. So probably, as I said, 0.15, 0.2 too expensive compared to utility ground mounted, but you don't sacrifice land use and you get extra revenues. So there are some use cases where we will win, probably some where you are not space constrained, where utility ground mounted is more suitable.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Laurent. I think we are running late. So what I would suggest, actually, I think we haven't discussed that before in the jury, but maybe everyone could kind of summarize in maybe 3 sentences what she thinks about what we've learned today. I just can give you a background. When we did the first screening actually on shortlisting the companies and coming finally to the final list, the results were very close. So maybe do a quick wrap up from everyone in the jury and then we start voting. So, but very short. Stefan, you again first.
Yeah, in generally, I think I'm a fan of some practical things. So that's the reason why I like the technology-orientated stuff. But on the other hand, I see also the really cool idea from Smart Helio to move into this and try to reduce recycling and finding the issues and try to solve it. So my favorite is Smart Helio, and let us see if we can do something together.
Okay.
Thank you.
Laurent?
Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm
thank you.
right now.
So I've learned a lot today. I'm an entrepreneur in a very different market, also in renewables, but not. So I've learned a lot. There are you guys are working in very deep technologies and in optimizing the system. I liked all of your projects. I would say I see the systemic approach of Urban Symphony very good. I'm impressed by the results, the achievable results that were presented. Thank you very much.
Stephanie?
Yeah, I'll keep it short. I mean, I think my takeaway from this is it was initially hard whittling it down to the 4 of you and kind of listening to all of your pitches. All of the solutions, all of the startups that you guys have, they're all so different and they're solving kind of different problems in the industry, which makes me really excited actually, because it's like, oh man, this is so good. They're not all just like talking about the same thing. Everyone has the same ideas. So it's kind of motivational to me and inspiring to me that you guys all have such brilliant ideas. I know who I'm going to vote for, but I guess the one thing I would say is please don't let the results of this bring you down. I think all of you guys will be really successful if you keep driving forward. So best of luck to you all.
Okay, Stephanie, that should have been actually the final statement instead of me giving maybe now a recommendation, because I would echo what you said. It's so different. It's really comparing apples to oranges here. I think you all kind of look at different approaches. And if I look back at SolarPower Europe, I can see each of you actually providing a solution for any of the for a work stream which we're doing. We're having agriculture. We're looking at the system. We're looking at the grids. We're looking at actually of integration of all technologies. So nevertheless, I come more or less from the production side. I think that's what I've been focusing a lot, and what I'm actually on what we are lobbying, at least I'm involved a lot in this at the moment at SolarPower Europe, is also bringing manufacturing back to Europe. So I think, and at the same time, we have to reduce costs. So that's why I would give my recommendation to Marian, the Fraunhofer spin-off. But nevertheless, again, as with I'm with Stephanie. I like all of you, and that's why it was difficult for us in the beginning, and it's still difficult. But yeah, everyone has to make a choice, and that's what we want to do now. Time to vote. Everyone, please go to Slido, take your phones, sli.do, enter the code SolarPower Summit 2021 and vote. We have 3 minutes actually. I think the software is actually, it doesn't work like this, that we see how the graphs are moving. So we have to have a little bit of patience, but we will be there in 3 minutes. So take your time and vote. And good luck. Govinda, are you on mute, or is your kid also so excited that he or she is not saying anything?
No, he just destroyed a lot of things here, so my wife just ran and grabbed him for a few minutes, and then I have to go and take care of him. So yeah, I'm also waiting for the results. Thank you.
One minute left. That's what I'm hearing. Closing now.
Come on, Michael, you have seen it already, the results,
No,
isn't it?
honestly, I haven't. No, I haven't. No. I'm just looking at the screen, and I'm basically reading what I was just saying. Closing now is the last message I have. I don't see, honestly. But by the way, do you remember actually last year we were pretty good? I think we all in the jury, we all kind of really thought or voted for the winner in the end.
But probably what we can do next year is then to invite the winner and ask where the winner is then with the development. So I think it can be interesting to see a bit of
okay. In any case, so I think
from somebody who wins.
Okay, that's what you can see on this slide is the prize for the winner. So in the end, what we have to say, everybody wins because all of you will get 1 year of free membership of SolarPower Europe. So that's for all of the finalists. The winner takes home then on top of that 5,000 euros, a free startup exhibition at Intersolar Smarter E, which is not taking place in July, hopefully now in October, and 1 year of free membership, and and on top also free coaching from B founders. So Laurent will spend some time with you to help you prepare for further pitches with investors. Oh, and the winner is, you can get your kid back, Govinda. The winner is Martelio.
Good. Yeah, I would say, well done.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Toast to you and to all of you who participated. Thanks again, and have a nice evening, and hope to stay in touch. Bye-bye.
All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Congratulations.
Bye-bye.
to all
Thank
of
you.
you.